We're going to go into we'll do other business first, and that is discussion of carrying firearms in township parks. Mr. Truelove, I'll let you start with this, and then we'll pick up after that.
The township and I individually received a letter from a gentleman named Kenneth Richmond, whom I understand now, in looking at some other information, has submitted a similar letter to other municipalities and also the county, discussing ordinances that prohibit carrying firearms in municipal or county-owned facilities or parks. He has pointed out that Section 6120 of the Crimes Code, Title 18 in Pennsylvania, which was passed, I believe, around 1997, essentially preempts or overrules any local ordinance or law which contradicts any provisions regarding the lawful carrying of a firearm. Our township ordinance was passed in 1979. As it stands now, and I've talked to the chief about this, many police departments around the county and other places are aware of the state law, have not been actively enforcing the ordinance. I do not. I know in my 5.5 years here, I have not seen one case come up with that. I don't expect any to. So the ordinance is technically invalid as it's on the books right now. The county recently revised or amended its ordinance with respect to carrying firearms in county parks. I will say as an aside, I believe this law was passed when it was to kind of literally preempt Philadelphia from being able to enact ordinances or laws stricter than those at the state level. And that's been challenged several times, and every time the state law has prevailed. My suggestion to the board is obviously we'll continue the approach that the police have wisely taken under the chief's recommendation to date. And I could take a look at the ordinance, and we can consider some recommendations sometime down the road. At this point, as it has not been enforced, there really has been no reason to be concerned about whether it's been challenged. So my recommendation is let me take a look at it and see what, if anything, can be crafted in terms of an amendment, if possible, down the road.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Truelove. Any comments from members of the board?
Chief, what's your thoughts on this?
Exactly what Dave said. It's not being enforced at this time, so therefore there's no hurry to do anything with the ordinance.
Mr. Rubin.
Good evening. I rise in support of keeping our ordinance, and I think this we should discuss this not in a vacuum. And let me give you a quick, brief analysis of the Second Amendment. I'm not a constitutional law officer, but as we all know, in December 1791, the Bill of Rights was passed, and part of that was the Second Amendment. And in it, the Second Amendment talks about a well-regulated militia and the right of the people to bear arms. But that does not give anybody an individual right to possess a gun and it was challenged in 1939. Up until 1939, the prevailing law in the United States was the Second Amendment has to talk about arming militias and having well-regulated. And as Mr. Truelove knows, in U.S. versus Miller, 1939, the Supreme Court, by a 9-0 vote, said that the Second Amendment does not give an individual right to own or bear a gun. It's a collective right, especially for a military or for militia. And that was the law of the land until 2008. And District of Columbia versus Heller, by a 5-4 vote, the Supreme Court ruled no. They overturned Miller and said that a person does have an individual right to bear arms, just like the freedom of speech. It's an individual right. But that only limited prohibiting laws to prohibit carrying guns in the District of Columbia and on federal properties. And McDonald versus Chicago in 2010 affirmed that on a 5-4 vote. But I think it's very important to understand what was worded in that decision. And in McDonald versus Chicago, it said that gun ownership is a fundamental right, just like freedom of speech, but it can be limited. And this is important to understand what Samuel Alito wrote for the majority. He said, quote, that it is not casting doubt on such long-standing prohibitions on gun possessions by felons or mentally ill, or keeping firearms out of, quote, sensitive places, such as schools and government buildings. Alito also said, despite municipal respondents' doomsday proclamation, the decision does not imperil every law regulating firearms. So even if you take that federal decision, it says that municipalities and other types of agencies do have the right to limit types of firearms going on sensitive places. So I think that the state law does not pass constitutional muster, even according to the McDonald versus Chicago 2010 decision. Thank you, and I'm glad you enjoyed that lecture.
Thank you, Zach.
If I could respond, not that I want to take on Mr. Rubin in a constitutional discussion right now, but we do have also the Pennsylvania State Constitution and provisions that are pertinent that we also have to deal with as well on the local level. So we don't just deal with the federal Constitution, but in a state law like this, we also have to deal with state constitutional issues and also what is commonly referred to in my business as Dillon's Rule, which is if there's a state law that is in an area that's occupied, that the local laws cannot supersede it. So,
okay. Thank you, Dave. Mr. Torbert.
Virginia Torbert, 1700 Yardley, Newtown Road. I would just request, and I think Mr. True will do this anyway, but I would request that I know there's been a recent Supreme Court decision in the state of Pennsylvania. I forget the name of the township that. A man challenged a local ordinance, and it went all the way up to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, and they ruled for the man who would challenge the ordinance and basically invalidated the ordinance. I would just request that, as Zach said, if there is any leeway in the state law so that we can provide some kind of common sense restrictions, that we explore that, so that we're not just doing away with the ordinance. If there is something we can do, I realize under state law, which may not be too amenable to us, but I just believe that it's in the interest of the citizens of this township that we not have people roaming our parks with firearms. Now, maybe that's not happening, but if there is any way to provide common sense restrictions that'll pass muster.
Well, I have every confidence that this board will take that into consideration. We're very thoughtful about anything that we rescind or undo or anything at this point. And this is the first that's come to our attention, so we've got some time to think about it. But I think I know these gentlemen well enough to know that we'll come up with something that will be palatable for the people in this community.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, Dave, you have your orders. Move forward and come back to us at.
Is there a time frame the board would like? I mean, do you want August, September, something like
2018 would be good, or something like that.
Okay.
August, September, fall.
I have,
Any
frankly,
preference?
no interest in changing our ordinance. So, Dave, you take your time.
I'll take my time.
2018 works. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Dave.
Certainly, I think in Pete's case it would be 2014, and Dan's case it would be 2016. So.
All right.